I'm going to use Cursor to build a real web app that generates an entire batch of YouTube visuals. We will start with an empty folder, connect an image model, build the interface, and test the finished app. You will learn with a hands-on project. By the end, you will understand the core Cursor workflow. Let's start. For context, what we want to do is to replace the workflow where you generate the image one by one to a system where we can generate all images at the same time that are going to be consistent and fast. First, you need to create an account in Cursor, GitHub, and Replicate. So in Cursor, because you need to install the program, you need to download, and you need to create your account, sign in, and set up the environment in your computer. Second, you need to go to github.com and do the same thing. You need to sign in and create your account. Then you go to Replicate and do the same. This is how GitHub the dashboard is going to look like when it's empty or almost empty. It's basically almost nothing is going to be here. The same for Replicate. And in this case, I ask you to go here to the dashboard, account settings. You go to API tokens and you put a name for your API, create the token and save that token. That is going to be a very long string in a safe place for a few minutes while we arrive to the place where we're going to use it. So that's the steps that we need to do just to start. Also, we need to integrate and tell to Cursor that we actually have an account in GitHub. So we go to here to settings, we go to Git here. Here in Reviewer, you are going to check GitHub. In your case, it's not going to be enabled, but you are going to get an option to synchronize with your GitHub, and that's what you're going to do. And then let's go back to the main thing. Also, I recommend to create a folder where you can put all the files related to this project. So in this case, I create this one that is going to be in my desktop. Is going to be a folder named batch images. So to give you an example of how to do it, you go to new folder, you go to the place where you want to do it, for example, in desktop, you create the folder, you name it. In this case, it's going to be batch images, and it's basically there. So this is it. So now the tutorial is going to be in 3 different pieces. First, we're going to do the planning. I think if you are new, I think this is going to be useful because you're going to understand what is going on. So let's do the planning. Second, the execution, the coding, and third, the review of the first version that the models are going to give us. So the first thing you need to do is basically explain to your computer what you want to do. So that's what we're going to do. In this case, I'm going to use it in voice. I use Whisperflow, but there are many other alternatives for that. So I'm going to use voice commands for this. We're going to create a web app to create a batch of YouTube images. The user is creators in YouTube that need to create consistent images for their videos in long format. Then the format of these images need to be 16 by 9. Note that the problem is how to create a batch of images with the same structure, the same format, and all of them at the same time. The inputs for the web app are going to be the general style for the images. Second, the list of the images you need to generate, these in the form of a CSV. And third, the selection of the model you want to use for the batch image generation. Those are going to be the inputs. The outputs are going to be one image for each item in the list that the user should be able to download in a folder. Also, you should give the option to the user to download each image one by one. The name of the images should correspond to the number of the item in the list. Then the first image is going to be the 001 plus the first 5 words of the description. The second image is going to be 002 and then the next 5 words of the description of that image. Then we can get control of that. So please ask me questions if something is not clear. So this is what we say. I think this is a bit more structured than what I say, and then we run. Note that we have the option to choose different models. So in this case, I choose Composer 2.5 because I believe is fast and I think is useful. But in general, I think you are going to use some of the high intelligent ones for planning. And I think most of the models today are relatively good. I think especially if you use Cursor, you're going to try to prioritize Composer and Cursor Grok 4.5 because are the cheapest here. But some of the intelligent ones are going to be Opus 5, GPT 4.6, Fable, Kimi K3 also is going to be very capable. So all those are the planning ones in general, and I think the execution can be most of the others. So now let's respond to some of these questions. What should each row initially be contain? The number 1 is correct. Only one column, description, text for that image. Which image generation provider should I selector? I'm going to use replicate. When you say same structure across images, what do you mean? A generating order. This is for B-roll in a YouTube video. When I say consistent, I mean that I want all of them to have similar features. For example, all of them need to have similar colors, similar style, similar... They need to be obvious that they belong to the same video, and they are basically that the images need to be related to each other. So that's what I'm going to say for that. For file names, always 5 words. In this case, I'm going to say only text. You can choose something different for you. Local development for only now. But if you want this live, let me know in the comments. Who should replicate API authentication work? We're going to use the API token, as we said before. So now let's see what is the plan. So it says that the goal is create a B-roll 16.9, color, mood, style, a global style, text only, no reference. We're going to check this. It talks about the goal. I think the goal is kind of what we are expecting. Architecture, if you don't have experience on this, I think architecture is kind of irrelevant. But for some of them that have strict views, I think you should check it out. So in this case, I'm going to just go fast for the tutorial, but you can spend more time on this. Prompt strategy, visual consistency. I think this sounds good to me. So I'm reading. It says that the CSV is going to be like this. It's going to have a line that is be one by one. Each one of the images is going to have a description like this, a close up of hands on a wooden counter. File name rule is the file name that we defined. So it's going to have a number like 001, and then what's happening in that one. Replicate integration, so we're going to have replicate integration, API in progress. UI, single page, we want a single page, that's good. A single page means that is one website. So about the user interface, I think we want a single page. This is going to be just very simple, very plain. We're going to select the style. I think that makes sense. With an input CSV, a drop down of the model. I think all that make sense. Just me check if you can download as a zip, that's correct. Individual download, that's what we ask, so this is good. Project layout, so that means like how this is going to be organized in our folder in terms of files. I think all this sounds good. You can always ask for changes or tell the computer, tell Cursor that you need something different. So you can always do that. So now it's implementing the plan. This is going to take a couple of minutes, but this is going to be faster for you. This took a few minutes, but now we have the first version already made. So as you see, we have 19 files that are new. Just to give you an example of what this is actually doing, I'm going to open the IDE. So the IDE is the way how people, coders, used to see all the files in the past. It's still a lot of people look at the files. This is what was created here. So all these files were created. So this is some of the code. This is, for example, some of the code that is going to help the computer to understand how to visualize all this part. So all these files are going to be made. And now let's check. We create an examples file that is also nice. This is good. So let's try what they say here. So first of all, we need to add the replicate token. So if you see here in example, we have the replicate token. So we need to do this. So this is going to be in the terminal. So we go to the terminal, we copy. So we create a new one that is environment local. And now we have that, we need to actually add our token here. So here in the environment local, we're going to put the replicate API token that is going to be a big screen that I'm really going to copy paste the real one that I saved before. So this is the one that we already said that is going to be in the tokens in replicate.com. So you do that. And so now that we have the token, we're going to follow these instructions. So we go to the terminal, we do this. This is to install the packages, and now we're going to run it. So basically this command is telling to the computer, now run this in my server. That means run that in my computer, and it failed. This is how some people actually solve this. We have this mistake, please solve. We show the error to the machine, and now they stop those problems, and we're going to replicate the same. We're going to do npm run dev again. So now it should be available. It's still showing that, so we're going to follow the suggestion here. Now should be running. We can go to the browser in cursor. So this is beautiful. This is the app that we were looking for. YouTube B-roll, batch image generator. All this sounds correct. Let's put something here. Something like generate images that are consistent with the traditional superheroes comics of the 1960s. We have 3 options. Later we can add different models. These are models that are going to be okay. I think we're going to select this one. Upload CSV. So we're going to go to the one that we have in the examples, the one that was created by their own. Okay, so we have a few examples here. So we are going to have only 3 just to make it simple. Okay, generate 2 images, let's go. I think the images are amazing, but they are not related to this part of the comics. We can go to replicate and check what is arriving to the model. So let's go to replicate and check what is in the logs. So it has been here, this was a run. The global style arrives here, and it says something about the 1960s. So that means that basically this is not understood by the model. Let's ask cursor to include a different model that may understand this. So for instance, we have other models that we can search here. So let's find best image models for B-roll. Let's see what happened. And in fact, what I'm looking for is a Grok model because I know that it's cheap and relatively fine. You can do more exploration on your own. Okay, so let's use this one. Command N for a new agent. Please allow me to use this model to generate images. Also, keep the models that are already there. And I'm going to put this model. Note that is the same if you ask the agent to do the work either here in the IDE. So this is the IDE where you sell all the different files. This is the IDE. So you can ask the model here, stuff. At the same time, you can do it in the agent's window. It's going to do the same thing if you ask here or if you ask here. So this work it out, and we have some modifications that should make that change. So let's reload, and now we have also Grok Imagine. Let's check if this is going to have a different result. As you see now, it looks more like we should be expecting, right? This looks more like a comics vibe, even though it's not exactly what I was imagining, but I think this looks way better in that way. So we can download one by one, or we can download as a zip. So I'm going to do that just for example purposes. So I believe this is in a great state for a local app, but I think I want to do a couple of changes. I think I would like here in the image model to give us a reference on what is the cost of each one of these models in case we need to do hundreds of them, and then we actually can be concerned about that. So I'm going to add that reference here, and So let's do it. When I select the model to generate images, I would like you to add the cost or the approximate cost of each image in the description. This is with the objective to approximate the cost according to my requirements. So we're going to do that. After this, we're going to have, basically I'm going to explain you how can you run this again, and how to make this an app that is going to work for you. How can you return back to this project and run this again and use it each time that you need to generate images. And I think the next step will be, if you want to make it permanent, you may need to have a server that actually keep this website running. But I think for a lot of people that is not going to be necessary, especially it's going to be local. But if you want to do something in production, those are the steps for the next 10 minutes. Now we have an estimation of the cost per image, and I think this is good in case we have a ton of them that we need to do. So now let's talk about how can you run this again when you close this first part. So first of all, we need to close everything. So let's close everything just to make this more realistic. So I'm going to close cursor. We're going to don't have anything of this here. Okay, so this is how this is going to look like when you want to return back. So you need to go to the workspace that is going to be the folder that is going to have your files. You click there. If it's not there, you add open workspace and you go to the folder where all these images are. And then you go there. So in this case, batch images. And you can go to the IDE and they have a folder named README that is going to explain you how to do the same thing. That you remember was just doing this, npm run dev. And imagine that somehow your folder doesn't have a README, so you can ask the model, how can I run this app? And they're going to guide you. So we go again to the terminal and we do it. Now it's running again. And it's the same thing. This is it. So now let's pivot into how we are going to mount this into production level. So now that we have the app made, let's prepare for deployment. So for this first, I need to actually push this to the Google repo code that is named GitHub. So we can use Cursor also to help us with this. Please push this code to a new repo in GitHub. Please do the authentication and merge the pull request to make this fast. Also, I'm going to remember Cursor that I want this in a private repo. So when I say in a private repo, that means that it's not available to all the world. It's going to be available only to me. I want this code in a private repo. So now we have the code in GitHub. How do we know that? Is we can go here to the graph and we see that some blue dots, that means merge pull request. So we did that. So now we have the code in GitHub and we're going to do render for deployment. And for render, first of all, we need to install the plugin. So let's go to here, customize. You find the plugins, so you can say render plugin. Let's go to authenticate. After we authenticate, we have here that is connected, the render plugin is connected. So we're going to go to a new agent and we are going to ask us like, please deploy this app in render. Make it a simple website with the simple settings. I just want to have an app that I can use from time to time. Most of it is going to be for my personal use. And I just give some of that context just to tell render that is going to be kind of very simple server, is going to be very economical instead of using a bigger server. Of course, if you plan to have basically more users and you actually want to have paid users and everything, you're going to change these settings. Okay, so which workspace? I'm going to say my workspace. The apps need to replicate API token. How should we set it? I'll add it myself. It took a lot of minutes, but now it's done. So now this is deployed on render. And if I click here, we can open this in the Cursor browser. And now with this link, you can share with your friends, with anyone you want, and now it's living there. So that's good. Also, I'm going to show you how to add the replicate API token. So the replicate API token, the best practice is to go to the environment in render and change it there. You go here to the render dashboard, you select the projects, in this case it's going to be batch images. You go to the environment, this is the replicate token, and you can copy paste. Basically, you're going to click in edit, and now you can paste it here. Okay, so this is how this is going to work. Now we know how we deploy this, how to create an app. We also know how to debug. We also know how to create something that we can share with our friends, family, or clients. And next step is to add a real domain to this. And I think that is going to be very possible, and you can do it in render. So in render, there is a process to add a new domain. You do it. Also, you are going to need probably some configuration changes in the main app that you also can cursor for assistance. To make this in production and do a code review in Claude or in Cursor. For example, in this is going to be code review, and it's going to do a code review of all the project. You can do the same in Claude Code. You can use a couple of models. You're going to use a Grok, use a Fable, and then with a couple of those code reviews are going to find anything that is going to be possibly problematic. Also, you can go to render, to the dashboard in render, and check which is the server that you're going to use. For most of you, you are going to be fine with the hobby plan system that is going to be not super capable. But if you have more users, you're going to choose a bigger server. And other thing that you need to do for long-term is to add a long-term database storage. You also can go to customize in Cursor and find the Supabase MCP, authenticate the app, and ask Cursor again to create a database for this because I want it to be persistent over time, etc. And it's going to give you the schema for a database that is going to work with this. Another part that also is missing is authentication. Authentication is relatively easy. It can be from very, very easy to more complicated and external, basically external apps. For example, Auth 0, or you can just use something very simple like email and password, and that's all. Or you can use something that has like an integration with Gmail or integration with Facebook. So you may want to check similar things to Auth 0 for that. And that's all. And I hope this helps. And if you want to see this live, let me know in the comments, and I can make actually this app nicer and sustainable and in a way that can be used for a lot of us, a lot of you.